Under a UN framework called REDD+, developing countries are paid to protect their forests and keep carbon in the ground, rather than cutting those trees down for quick cash. But tying billions of dollars to carbon metrics can create dangerous, perverse incentives. A government could decide to meet its carbon targets by forcibly evicting indigenous populations and bulldozing their villages to create a tightly controlled protected area. Or authorities might cut down a diverse, naturally occurring jungle and replace it with a sterile grid of fast-growing commercial timber, creating a highly efficient carbon sponge that is effectively an ecological dead zone. To stop these abuses before they happen, the UN established a strict safety net in 2010. Agreed upon in Cancun, Mexico, these 7 rules are known as the Cancun Safeguards, and they are mandatory for any nation seeking REDD+ funding. We can see how these safeguards operate in the real world by looking at Cambodia. With a high historical deforestation rates and immense vulnerability to extreme weather, it serves as a critical testing ground for these rules. The premise here is simple. Saving the planet mathematically fails if it destroys human rights and local ecologies in the process. We can group the 7 safeguards into 3 main pillars. The first pillar covers safeguards C and D, which mandate that local communities are protected from exploitative top-down projects. In Cambodia, Safeguard C requires the government to officially respect indigenous knowledge, protect cultural heritage, and recognize collective land tenure rights. Safeguard D takes this further by enforcing a principle called FPIC-C, free, prior, and informed consent. This means locals must be fully informed about a project before it begins, without any coercion. Crucially, it gives marginalized groups and women the absolute right to say no to an initiative, stopping forced mandates in their tracks. Curious, the second pillar, built on Safeguard E, shifts the focus from people to the environment itself. It requires that a forest is treated as a living, breathing ecosystem. This rule explicitly forbids the conversion of natural old-growth forests into agricultural monocrops or tree plantations. Under Cambodia's framework, any REDD+ money coming into the country must actively promote the conservation of native biodiversity and natural heritage. A legitimate forest protection project has to secure the survival of both its native people and its native ecology to remain viable. The final pillar encompasses safeguards A, B, F, and G. These are the administrative and monitoring rules designed to ensure a project isn't quietly corrupted or temporary. Safeguards A and B demand transparent governance. Every REDD+ action must align tightly with existing national laws and international conventions. Cambodia translated this into actionable policy by deploying a feedback and grievance redress mechanism. They set up physical, locked complaint boxes in local communes all over the country. This allows citizens to safely and anonymously report project issues directly to a provincial accountability group. Meanwhile, Safeguards F and G tackle the physical accounting of climate change by requiring countries to prevent what are known as reversals and displacement. A reversal happens if a protected forest simply burns down a few years later. Displacement occurs if a logging company is kicked out of a protected area, only to move their chainsaws into an adjacent, unprotected forest. Without strict governance and constant monitoring, climate projects only shift environmental destruction elsewhere instead of actually stopping it. This brings up the ultimate accountability question. How does the UN actually verify that a country is following all 7 of these rules? This flowchart illustrates the Safeguard Information System, the mandatory mechanism nations use to provide receipts. In collection and aggregation, implementers gather data from local communities, feeding a national database. During analysis and dissemination, data is verified, published publicly, and submitted to the UN. Cambodia's reporting metrics are highly specific. They have to document the exact number of meetings held and precisely how many women and indigenous representatives participated in the FPIC consent processes. They are also required to provide spatial mapping data that proves natural forest cover was maintained before and after the intervention. Generating this transparent, publicly accessible report is the absolute prerequisite. Without it, a country cannot receive any results-based payments. The Cancun Safeguards anchor climate mitigation in global justice, forcing every carbon-counting project to prove its integrity through human rights and ecological stability.